Episode 5, switching gear. We're on episode 5 already, Joe.
Episode
oh my
5,
God.
wow.
We're cruising. Today we're talking about Ibanez. Ibanez of today versus Ibanez of sometime many yesteryears ago. This is my baby. This is the guitar I learned to play on. This is the guitar that I still consider me. It's like seriously an extension of me.
So I'm going to cut you off right there.
Yeah.
You had mentioned in a previous episode that when you think of me, you think of the PRS. When I think of you, I think of that.
Yeah, and I believe it because this is all I do have other guitars, but this is my primary guitar. I like I said, I learned on it. I've had this since, I'm going to date myself here. I bought it in, I want to say early 1990 or maybe spring of 1990. Okay. I got a really good deal on it. It was brand new at the time. I think I paid $600.
Wow.
Yeah, which at the time was a really good deal. It was selling for like $1,200.
Sure.
There was a very well-known music store that was closing one of its locations, and they had a blowout sale, and I went, and this thing was not on the shelf. It was in the back behind the counter, and I said, "What's up with that one?" And they said, "Oh, there's a little nick on the back. We'll give it to you for $5.99." And I'm like,
sold.
Yep, done. So here it is.
So tell me about it. What's unique about this guy?
So this is a Gem 7 PBK.
Not PBJ.
No, not PBJ. It's
we're not talking about peanut butter and jelly.
No, we're talking about good old Ibanez guitars here. And for the Gem enthusiast, they're looking at it and they're probably vomiting or cringing or something because of what I did to this beautiful guitar. But I made it mine and it's very unique now.
Yes.
So, unfortunately,
it is unique.
Unfortunately, it's one of the least common gems around and probably a very valuable one, but I devalued the heck out of it.
So why is it valuable?
Because they didn't make a lot. They didn't make a lot of them. They were limited run. They were like, I think it was 88 to 90, short period of time. They didn't make a lot. They're rare. They're hard to come by. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
So, when this thing was brand new, it looked completely different. And the first thing, it was all black. It was painted black. In fact, some of that black is still here. I left it here, just in here and here, just to remember it. The pickguard was black. The pickup configuration was the same, but they were white pickups. There was tone and volume, and the volume was way too close for my liking. So one day I decided, because it became really hip and really popular back in the mid-90s, to get these unfinished paint, no paint guitars, right? Completely sanded down to nothing. Natural, right. Like tongue oil, whatever. Nuno was like the cool guitar player, and he had that N4, which was like nothing but wood, right? And everybody was buying these custom guitars and having them made, you included, that were, wood finished guitars, and I wanted one, but I didn't want to go buy one. So I said,
"Give me that sandpaper."
So let me see the sand. There's a belt sander. So I took the neck off and I took all the electronics and I just took the body and I'm grinding the thing away. It's still like
for like 6 months.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's such a bad job. Like if you look up close, it's really a bad sanding job. But anyway, what ended up happening was I sanded the paint off. A friend of mine who was like a guitar designer, a luthier, decided I was going to put a black pickguard back on. He said, no, you got to go white. So we went white. Moved my volume knob out of the way. I made this a 3-way instead of a 5-way, and I did it so many times that the little nubby thing flew off, and I never put it back on.
Doesn't bother you?
Nah. I have calluses there. I flip so much. So anyway, this guitar is so customized to my liking. It has the best neck. I'm sorry, hands down, ever put on a guitar. And what I did find out recently is, it is a wizard neck, but it's thinner than the normal standard wizard neck, and it can only be found on this particular model.
Really?
Guitar. I was like, you can't find them anywhere else. I think it's a 17 radius on it. It's very flat. Wow. Yeah. But it's super, super thin, super fast. It is, and one of the unique things is the last top 4 frets are scalloped.
Right.
I don't know.
In case you're hungry.
Exactly. Which incidentally,
some scallops.
Yeah. I can't stand scallops of food, and I also can't stand a scallop fretboard. Okay. I don't know if you ever played on one, but
I have.
It's not for me.
Not for me.
I end up pulling strings out of tune.
I press
too hard.
Yeah, I don't get it.
It's just that's not for me.
I don't understand.
But these, it's nonsense up here. I mean, you don't even realize the scalp, and how often you really play up here.
Right.
Once in a blue moon, and it's really a non-issue. But the other thing about the gems, the vine that they have going up the fretboard drives me crazy. I lose my place.
Right, yeah.
So I like the inlays here.
The
So that's
pyramid, right? Where
the
it builds
pyramid.
the pyramid.
Yep,
That's
exactly.
cool.
So this guitar's got everything for me. I mean, it doesn't have the piezo and all that kind of modern day technology, but in terms of playability, comfort, the neck, all the customizations I did, aside from the fact that I completely devalued the guitar, it's a workhorse.
Yeah, but I think that's the coolest thing about it, though, is that it doesn't matter if you devalued it, because to you,
yeah, I would never get rid
priceless.
of it. I would never, ever, ever, ever get rid of this guitar.
So it's priceless,
exactly,
as far as the value.
100%.
Right?
Agree with that.
And I think it's awesome that you made it your own.
Yeah,
and it looks cool.
It's cool.
It looks cool.
It's unique. I think Vi actually had a wood finished gem at one time, but I think it had the black. I don't remember. I'd have to look back into that, but I can remember something very not similar to this. Is different pickguard. He didn't do all this stuff with the electronics that I do, and but it's something very similar to that. The other thing is I always take the back plate off, and I have the shaw claw in there,
right,
for string tension. Oh, I also blocked off the Floyd, so it's not floating.
Oh, that's
just
interesting.
Because I was sick of breaking strings live and it going completely out of tune. So I blocked that off, and I very rarely come up on the bar. So so that's another unique feature of this one. It's got the blocked Floyd, but I have a Air Norton and a Fred. Those are the two pickups that are in this.
Okay.
And this thing's flattened. I have it down as far as it could possibly go, so it doesn't get in my way. And I never, ever, 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 ever
use the middle pickup.
The middle pickup. So it's as useless to me as a tone knob.
Okay.
So that's that. So tell me about this guy.
So this is a 2018, and the model number is S1070 PBZ.
Oh, PBZ.
So where you had PBK, this
wow.
is PBZ.
How do you like
they
that?
They have weird names, Ibanez. Some of them have names. Like they actually iron something or whatever the new ones are. This one is just an S Series 1070 PBZ, which is okay. You have to remember that. This has got a lot of bells and whistles, this guitar, and it's funny how you talked about the middle pickup, because if you notice,
it is gone.
It's gone. And why is it gone? So I got the guitar, absolutely loved it, played great, sounded great, middle pickup completely in my way, to the point where I didn't know what to do. I was starting to stress out about it. What do I do? Do I return this guitar?
Sure,
and I didn't want to, because I loved it.
It's beautiful. Look at
it's a
the
beautiful
finish
instrument,
on that.
and it plays really great.
Yeah.
And so I tried lowering the pickup, and it wouldn't go any lower. And then I realized, this is a very thin body. There's no room for it to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And it was a DiMarzio True Velvet, and it came with a DiMarzio Tone Zone and an Air Norton.
It was meant for you.
It was meant for me, and an Air Norton in the neck. So I decided to just pull it out, and when I pulled the pickup out, you could see. The wires for the other pickups are in there, and there's really nowhere for it to go.
Yeah.
So from a design perspective, I'm not sure why they would do this, because it was higher than these pickups, and
it gets, and I feel that all the time. That's why I do what I did here.
But you have a pick guard there, so you could
yes,
sink
I could sink it. But again, that center pickup for me is always in the way.
Yeah.
Even if it's flat, sometimes the poles are sticking up a little too high, and you can feel them into your picking. And
I think for a high performance kind of guitar like this, the Gem and this one, you don't need a middle pickup.
Yeah.
The styles that use middle pickups frequently are not typically rock shred guitars.
Yeah,
they're not.
Yeah.
So I'm not really sure why they do that. But it's got your 5-way, which now in the middle position is just off for me.
So you can do that little Les Paul trick.
Right, exactly. It has, I think, an 11-piece neck. It's got a Purple Heart stripe in there. It has maple. It has a whole bunch of different woods. It's got some rosewood on the sides. The fretboard is Panga, I believe.
Wow.
I might be wrong there. I'd have to check that. I think it's Panga, which is I guess a newer fretboard material.
Never heard of it, to be honest.
Me neither. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's a hard surface. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
It feels alright. It feels kind of like rosewood to me. It's got your locking tuners in the back, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, you have a locking trem anyway,
it's
so
like,
why do you have that? But you got them. I like the kind of black chrome-ish look on the hardware. That's kind of cool. It has the floating Ibanez. I think it's the Edge tremolo.
Yeah,
Edge
that's what
2.
this says. The Edge this is the original Edge tremolo.
I think this might be an Edge 2.
This thing's kind of beat up. It's seen better days.
This has a tension adjustment here, where you can adjust the tension on the strings, for the springs on the bridge.
Similar to the Shawclaw, I guess, just kind of a modern.
Correct.
Modern version
sort of
on that.
ease of accessibility
Yeah, so
without having to take
the-
the thing off and use that. Right.
Yeah, sure.
Neck is super fast. It's a wizard neck, super flat. I'm going to assume the radius on this is probably a 16 or 17. It's very flat. I don't have those specs off the top of my head. But it's a great guitar. It sounds really good. Nice sustain. Feels good. It's fun to play.
Let's hear them together. Just play an A chord and we'll do it.
It's got more mid-range.
Yeah. Nice.
It's a fun guitar to play, and it's comfortable. It's slightly top-heavy with the neck. I think because the bodies are so thin.
Yeah.
And again, you have a multi.
It really is a cool finish on there. That is just
I
beautiful.
don't know. I guess this is maybe spalted maple, not spalted. Buckeye maple, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And then you have all kinds of other stuff in here.
Yeah, this guy's just basswood, straight up basswood maple neck.
And I think it's
Nothing
mahogany in the
fancy.
back.
I don't know. I'd argue that maybe this is a nicer finish.
You could argue it. We could argue about that. So, before we switch to guitars, let's go off on a tangent a little bit here,
Sure.
right? Because, I mean, we do a lot of playing in these videos. And,
Sure.
What I noticed is that playing these different guitars sort of inspires me to play differently sometimes. So, tell me a little bit about your technique and what this guitar does for you from a technique perspective.
So I think it's funny you say that, because in doing these episodes, I've been a creature of habit. And we talk about that I don't have a plethora of guitars. And in fact, I probably have more hours on this guitar than I could even venture to guess. So I think I don't feel comfortable adapting quickly to other guitars. So I find myself, when I pick up a guitar that's not this one or not one that I have, it will absolutely inspire me to play differently, just because I don't feel comfortable on it.
Right.
And some of the things that I'm accustomed to playing on here, I try on a different guitar and I don't feel it. I don't feel like I am really playing to my
zone.
physical ability. So I might play differently, maybe play with a different type of feel, a bluesy feel, maybe pay more attention to other elements of my playing as a result of not feeling comfortable on a technical level on an instrument.
But do you attribute that to your sort of comfortability with your guitar, being you're so used to it?
Yeah.
Or do you think there's a physical aspect behind it that's maybe making you feel? Do you think it's mental?
Yeah, I think it's probably
Like, hey, this isn't my guitar.
Yeah, like I'm cheating on my guitar, so yeah,
Right.
it does kind of feel that way. But yeah, I think it's I feel physically limited on other guitars.
Okay.
Because I'm not comfortable with it, and I think it does play into the mental aspect of it. And if I'm not mentally in the zone with the instrument, then I feel like I'm not playing at my physical, technical potential. Then I will play differently, which is a good thing, because I like that.
Can
right?
take you out of your
Yeah, it takes you. It kind of puts you on a path somewhere else, and then take that information that you've gathered there, and then bring it back to your comfort zone.
Right.
And now you've just enhanced your playing tenfold, because you're back to your comfort guitar, but you're now incorporating elements that you've kind of learned or picked up along the way by being uncomfortable.
Right.
And I think there's something to be said about that. And And yeah.
Well, that's how you grow, right? Getting out of
100%.
If you're practicing something that comes easy to you, you're really not.
No,
Not gonna
you're
really
just kind of reinforcing the same old thing over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's not just guitars. It could be an amp. It could be
Sure.
an effects pedal.
Sure.
Anything can inspire you to play differently, right? So if I plug into a Marshall that's got very little overdrive, I'm not going to sit there and try to play some kind of shreddy lick on it because it's probably not going to sound great. I'm not going to be comfortable in that sound.
Right.
You know how it is.
Sure.
Within a second of
You
digging into a note,
Right.
you're like, all right, yeah, well, I'm not going to play this lick because this is not going to work on that sound.
Right.
So you kind of, just like the feeling I have when I'm not physically comfortable on a guitar, if I'm not comfortable with the sound, I will also veer off in a different playing style to kind of adapt to the tonality of the amp that I'm playing through.
Right.
And that could also help out in the long run.
Sure.
With different ideas and different licks.
Interesting.
And stuff along the way. Yeah.
So for me, guitar is very visual to me.
Oh, yeah.
When I'm playing it. And when I see guitars, even if I'm looking through a magazine or looking online or something, it's either saying something to me, and this sounds very, mumbo jumbo-y, right? It's either talking to me,
Yeah.
or it's not.
Sure.
And if it is, then I'm going to gravitate towards it and say, hey, what do I want to hear out of this guitar? And that's sort of how I approach music from that perspective, right? It's a visual thing first. And I actually like playing a bunch of different guitars. It keeps me on my toes.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing, for sure.
Maybe there's an aspect of it where I'm not getting super comfortable with one instrument, so therefore maybe I'm not reaching my peak because I'm not letting myself get comfortable. I don't know.
I never thought of it
right?
that way.
So for instance, you're saying, you could play your best on your guitar because you're so used to it. Well, I'm used to most of my guitars to some degree, right? But I don't have a single guitar in my collection that I have to play if I want to play at my peak.
You see, I would have thought that the Paul Reed is that guitar for you. That's the one that you feel the most comfortable with, and that's the one that you probably pay. But maybe not.
I feel very comfortable with it, but I feel comfortable with other guitars I have too. I feel comfortable with this one too.
That's awesome.
So it's just a question of, and I wonder, if I just played the same, like you've had this for 30 years, right? You have a small collection of guitars. If I only had a handful of guitars, 2, let's just say, and I played one most of the time, would I be much better of a player or not?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a scary thought if you could be a better player, because you're pretty damn good. That'd be sick. But yeah, I mean, listen, I never thought of it from that perspective. That's like the opposite way that I would have kind of thought of it. But maybe that's the case. But I wish I was easily adaptable to other instruments. I think that's probably just a better approach than for me to be uncomfortable, because you get put in a situation and all of a sudden you're given gear that you're not familiar with and you're like, oh God, this isn't my guitar. Right. And you're trying to muddle through it.
To me, a lot of that is mental.
Yeah.
Yes, there's the physical comfortability factor of what you're used to, and then you talk about the radius all the time, right, and all that stuff. To me, it's also, if I'm not mentally aware of the fact that I need to sort of relax and not fight the instrument, right, because we also talk about how much you have to fight it, right, and there's a fight in every guitar. I don't care how comfortable you are with it, there's still a fight,
oh, definitely,
right?
Yeah.
So how much of a fight is there in the instrument? And if there's a little bit of a fight, sometimes, especially if you're just handed a guitar, you got 30 people around you, and here, be Craig, and you want to try to live up to whatever that standard is.
Yeah.
You can psych yourself out of that really fast.
Oh yeah.
So for me, I have to just think about, okay, well, I have to play as light as I can to make it as easy as possible, and it's going to be what it's going to be, and accept it. And if you don't accept it, then you're just going to sit there and you're going to go,
yeah.
It's great, guys, right?
When in doubt, play the blues.
Not even know if I brought it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Or, you can just pick it up and you could be relaxed and comfortable.
Yeah.
Even, I said, there's still going to be a fight in it, but you can start to feel the instrument a little bit more.
And that's true. You got to feel out the instrument. Every instrument has something unique and some characteristic that if you could find that and bring that out, again, I think that goes to what I was saying about changing stylistically by changing up the instrument that you're playing on.
Sure.
Sometimes, just finding the niche of that particular. This guitar, it's not the, you're not going to sit there and play Stevie Ray licks all day on this. It's not that. It doesn't feel like that.
Well, while we're talking about technique, what inspires you to play these days? We could do an episode just on influences and stuff, but just what inspires you today, to still do this, right? Because you've been playing a guitar a long time. When did you start? How old were you when you started?
So like I said, 5th grade is when in a previous episode I talked about really getting interested in guitar.
So what are you, like 10, 11 years old?
Yeah, I get whatever it was, but I didn't really start playing seriously until I was about 15 or 16. I was pretty old. I wasn't very good at the beginning. If I'm being flat out honest with you, there were people that were getting really good, and I just wasn't putting the time. And then I guess it wasn't until I got, you're playing baseball and you're playing this, you're playing other things going on in life, and I couldn't focus. But once I got other things out of the way and I was able to focus, that was when I was probably at about 15, 16 years old. I started taking lessons from a really good guitar player that influenced the hell out of me.
By the name of?
Well, yeah. You know who it is. We won't talk about it. But, yeah. So, anyway. But, that again, so we'll talk about that. There's a double-edged sword there. So you're going to guitar lessons and you got this monster, ridiculous guitar teacher, and you're learning, and
you'll find out who that is soon.
Yeah, one of these days we'll talk about who that guitar teacher was.
We promise you know who it is.
You'll know the name, but we won't talk about it just yet. But anyway, going and sitting face to face with a guy like that really is a great thing, and it's very inspirational. But at the same time, you leave there and you're like, will I ever come near that?
Tail between your legs.
Yeah, it's like it's that double-edged sword. It's like it's great on this hand and terrible on this hand. I hate to say it, because you would walk out of there sometimes, and it wasn't anything that, he was an unbelievable guitar teacher, and it wasn't anything he was doing intentionally. He was just that good of a player and a teacher that it was like, my God.
You feel it's unreachable.
Yeah, it's unattainable. Exactly. But so that was. I forgot why we're talking about that, but yeah, so that's when I started to take guitar playing very seriously. When I'd have to go and face that guy once a week and play what I was expected to play from the previous week and try to muddle through it. And of course, I'd be nailing it at home, and then I'd get there and I'd be like all thumbs.
Yeah,
like this guy must think I'm a terrible guitar player. So anyway, but so that's really when it started for me, and. Then there were the local influences, and everybody has. So I talked about the guy Mike. He influenced me at an early age. I have a friend Joe, who he was another monster guitar player that really inspired me. We were bandmates at the time, and I would always try to get to the point that he was already at. So it kept me going. And I know I tell you the story all the time, but I saw you play. And I was like, holy crap, these are guys my age, right? Because we're the same age. But you were already at the point you're playing clubs. And I was taking lessons. And I didn't realize that what I was learning then and there could potentially take me to where you already were on a stage playing in front of people and ripping. I was like, oh my God. So it's not just my guitar teacher that could play really fast and smooth and cool. There's local guys. Like, I could do this. And that's inspirational, So I had inspiration from all over the place. But today, what inspires me, I think it just becomes in your blood at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You've dedicated so much time to it.
Right.
And, do I play as much as I did back then? No, it is other things. Whoops. Life, was that you or me?
It was you.
All right, sorry. Life is, I don't think that's me. The guitar's off. So, anyway, maybe it's the AB switch. So anyway, yeah. So I don't play as much as I do, but when I do, I try to get the most out of my playing time as possible.
Sure.
But still trying to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Still trying to improve. How about you?
A lot of the same. So when I started, I was a young kid, maybe 10 or 11 years old, just going on 11. And at first, I was inspired by local guys. There was other kids in the neighborhood that were already playing in a few years, and they were playing. I was into metal, and they were playing songs by bands I liked, and it was, wow, who are you taking lessons from? And make a long story short, fast forward, I started taking lessons with this one local teacher who was, quite a bit older than me. He was probably in his mid-20s at the time, and I was about 13. And he was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And he was an incredible teacher. Probably still is. I think he still teaches to this day. And I remember my very first lesson. I was just floored, like you were saying, and it inspired me to a level that I really can't put into words.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing about it now, all these years later, because that was in 1985, so now you know how old I am.
And me too, because I already said I'm your age.
Right.
Damn
right.
it.
So, to be 36 years later, these things are weird. To be 36 years later and still find it exciting, I think is a treat.
Yeah.
And it makes me more interested in playing guitar just for that fact alone. Like, wow, I'm still into this? It's been 3.5 decades. Right? I still want to try to get better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that alone is enough to really push me each day. And, there's days where I don't want to play. And I think, why bother? And then there's other days I pick it up and I say, you know what? Let me push myself today. So, but yeah, the local guys, and of course there's a myriad of, pros. And we can have a whole episode.
Oh, 100%. I mean, geez.
But if it wasn't for those couple of local guys, that really kicked me.
It's huge.
It is huge.
It makes it attainable. Like, right? So when you see guys, and we're dating ourselves again, back then all the rock stars were in magazines, and there was no MTV to see. Well, there was MTV, but there's no YouTube that you could just pull it up and watch them. These guys were almost mythological.
They were.
And they weren't human. They played instruments. They were guitar players. They were human beings, but in our minds as kids, they were
fantastical beings.
It was different. You couldn't really, until you saw people firsthand doing that stuff and realizing that you can do it too, and then it becomes inspirational and it kind of catapults from there. And I think that's, I'm sure a lot of people have similar stories.
Yeah,
I'd be curious.
I'll never forget getting one of my first guitars. I think it might have been my first Les Paul. I'd been playing a few years already. And I would look at the guitar as much as I played it. It sounds corny, sounds weird, but I would, it would be on the stand or laying down on whatever on the floor, and I would just gaze at it, just
like, I can't believe that's mine.
Yeah, and just think about the instrument, and that's a level of interest in something that is beyond casual. That's beyond someone just, oh yeah, I want to learn how to play a guitar. It's something that was completely. It was an obsession, basically. Yeah,
100%. I remember going into music stores and seeing guitars on the stand and on the wall, and just being blown away at how cool looking it was.
Right.
Just the look of it, let alone the sound of it. And the sound once, I remember seeing Van Halen in '84. I was a kid, and to hear that
oh my God,
at an arena level, and hearing Eddie just like,
yeah,
that was probably the moment. That was when the switch was clicked, and that I said, I got to learn how to play this damn thing, and I got to play like that guy someday. So then I ended up playing a Van Halen tribute band.
Yeah, there you go. So for me, it was not a large arena act. Dating myself again, it was at a roller rink, a local roller rink, maybe in your town where you grew up.
I know the roller rink you're talking about. Yeah,
and they had live bands.
Really?
Yeah, and I remember going there. This is around the 1985, 86 time frame, and I remember going there. If it was 86, it was early 86. And there was a band playing there, and I forget what, they're playing cover tunes. And seeing that up close, like, wow, these guys are playing. They know what they're doing. They're
creating that sound you're hearing right in front of your face.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know. I know the feeling. I had the same thing.
And that was very... that had a lot of impact.
Yeah.
Had a lot of impact.
Yeah, and I have another similar experience that I was at a carnival. And I think it might have been in your hometown, believe it or not. And I was really young. It was before I started playing, but I remember seeing a cover band. And I remember standing at the side of the stage, and I saw the guitar player, and he had a red guitar. And I'll never forget that. Like, why would you remember that to this day? But it had that kind of impact on me, because you're hearing this massive amount of sound coming from 4 or 5 people on the stage, and I'm like, man, that thing sounds cool.
Yeah.
The guitar is just a cool instrument, you know.
It really is. It
Yeah.
really is.
It's expressive. It's for me, the electric guitar is it's where it's at. It's the coolest sound. Probably the most expressive.
It wins.
Yeah, totally wins.
Awesome.
So, but yeah, let's talk. Let's talk about this on another episode, and we'll really get into the nitty gritty about what keeps the candle burning.
Sounds good. So with that,
episode 5
in the cans.
That's it. We'll see you guys next time.
Take care.
Subscribe. See ya.